want to make this video. This was supposed to be a very different video when I started making it. I've been working on a video for the past few weeks comparing the new MacBook Air to my 4-year-old MacBook Pro. This video was supposed to be just a smackdown where the MacBook Air just slapped the MacBook Pro around town, and I just listed the MacBook Pro on eBay shortly thereafter. But that's not what happened at all. I'm gonna say it right now, right at the top, because I don't want anyone to misconstrue my words. The new MacBook Air with the M1 chip is amazing. And if you're wanting a new Mac right now, that's where I'd point you. But if you already have a decent MacBook Pro that's a few years old, maybe you wanna wait a little bit. Hello there, I am Titus, and let's talk about why. Let's start with benchmarks, because that's what got me interested in the Air to begin with, when I just saw people posting these amazing benchmark scores with a variety of tests. For Geekbench, the Air just crushed the 4-year-old 15-inch MacBook Pro. It had a score of more than double in both the single core and multi-core. And for Cinebench, it wasn't quite as impressive, but it was still quite a bit higher. The score was about 60% higher on the Air than on the Pro. Now I wanted to do a benchmark to kind of measure the graphics. The only one I could think of was the Untitled Heaven benchmark, which actually is not optimized to work on the new M1 Max. But even considering all that, it scored again about 60% better score and frames per second than the MacBook Pro. Now that last one really surprised me because the Pro has a dedicated graphics card. It's an AMD Radeon card. And with the M1 chip, it doesn't. It actually has the graphics built in on the chip with the rest of the processor. So it's just a system on a chip. So right out of the gate, I am expecting the Air to just dominate over my 4-year-old MacBook Pro at anything I throw at it. But the benchmarks don't tell the full story. I wanted to do some real world tests. I wanted to know how much this extra power when the M1 would get me when I'm using a variety of apps. To start off, I tried a couple of apps that were designed to work on the new Apple Silicon chips, including Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, and Pixelmator Pro. And again, all of these are designed to work perfectly on Intel as well as Apple Silicon. So I just tried a variety of common tasks like scrubbing through the timeline, scrubbing through footage, and trying to find different clips to add to the timeline, color grading, general editing, as well as general photo manipulation. In nearly every case, the difference was extremely mild between the two. And I have to admit that the Air did seem a slight bit smoother though. There is one little addendum to that. The DaVinci Resolve app, which is in beta by the way, did actually scrub better on the Air, and playback was a bit smoother than the Pro. I also did an export of a 5-minute 4K 60 frames per second color graded video on Final Cut as well as DaVinci Resolve. And again, the results were about what I expected from these general tests. On Resolve, the export took 6 minutes and 28 seconds on the Air, and on the Pro, it took 6 minutes and 52 seconds. Now the Resolve version I was using was in beta, but Final Cut isn't in beta, and this was a really weird one. The export for the Air was 9 minutes and 22 seconds, and the Pro was, get this, 10 seconds faster. Didn't see that one coming. Now that threw me for a loop. I did not think the Pro would beat the Air at anything, and definitely not at software that Apple themselves designed, Final Cut, and actually that's my editor of choice. And don't get me wrong, I think the Air is a better computer, and it beat the Pro in basically every test I threw at it, other than that one random exception. Now for the sake of being complete, I also wanted to try some apps that were being emulated to work on Apple Silicon, some apps that haven't been optimized to work on Apple's new chips. So I tried Photoshop and Premiere. Oddly enough, the performance between the Air and the Pro was really similar in Premiere as well as Photoshop. I even did a similar 5-minute export in Premiere, 4K, 60 frames per second, shot on my GH5, color graded, all that, and the Air crushed the Pro. Again, I didn't see that coming because Premiere is not designed to work on the new Air, it's just being emulated to work on it, and it works perfectly. The export on the Air was 10 minutes and 30 seconds, and on the Pro, it took 19 minutes and 42 seconds. Ouch. It's really bizarre to me that the most noticeable performance difference between any of the apps I tested was on Premiere, an app that was being emulated. Now, I'm not oblivious. I know I struck a chord with my last video talking about the Air versus the new Pro, and before I get a horde of angry people at me, saying that my tests were wrong or whatever, I'm gonna put out a video tomorrow so you can actually watch all these tests yourselves. It's a 30-minute video where you can watch every single test I did on every single app, benchmarks, everything. And that way you can see it for yourself. If I did something wrong, please let me know. But as far as I can tell, everything performed as I told you in this video. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss that video. So this whole thing kind of weirded me out because on paper, the Air is supposed to blow away this 4-year-old MacBook Pro, according to the benchmarks. But in all honesty, I was shocked at how little it made a difference in real world tests and actually doing real work. And as I'm looking at those performance tests and considering that there are a ton of apps that have still not been designed to work on Apple Silicon, I think that's an even bigger reason why you might want to just wait a bit. Because in theory, when those new apps are designed to work on the Apple Silicon chips, you should get even better performance. That might be why the benchmarks are showing this incredible performance difference, but the apps aren't necessarily performing all that different because they haven't necessarily figured out how to tap in to all the power of the Apple Silicon chips. Now that is speculation. I don't know if that's true, but that's just the theory I'm working on right now. With all that said, should you buy an M1 Mac? Well, I think that's a pretty complicated question. If you need a Mac right now and you cannot wait, then I think these machines are great. They're a great bang for the buck. I think they'll get better over time as more and more apps work on them and as more and more apps are better optimized to work on these chips. But there are going to be some apps that if you need access to, well, you might be out of luck because they don't work on it yet. If there's an app that you need and you don't know if it works on the new M1 Max, then I would suggest doing some Google searches. See if anyone has actually got that app to work on the M1 Max and if it works well. If all the apps that you need work on M1 Max and you need one right now, then I think this is a great time to buy it. Because even though you're gonna get it today and it's gonna work just fine, more than likely it's gonna work even better and better and better as more and more apps are optimized to work on it. I think it's all uphill from here. I think people are seeing that these chips are legit and more developers are going to work to make their apps work on Apple Silicon. I feel like by making this video, I'm inviting a lot of people to criticize me because I made a video 1 month ago or so where I basically suggested that you shouldn't buy the new Pro. You should only buy the new Air because the performance difference is going to be pretty small between the two, and the Air is a lot cheaper. You might be thinking, am I going to admit that I'm wrong? And am I going to say, you know what, you actually should have got the Pro because the Pro is going to be better than the Air? I don't think that's really the case. I mean, I think it's better. I just don't think it's that much better. I think I still stand by that video. I watched countless videos and benchmarks online, and it just didn't make any sense to me. I think 99% of people are gonna be plenty happy with the MacBook Air versus the Pro. But I will say, if I had the new MacBook Pro and compared it to my 4-year-old MacBook Pro, some of these benchmarks and tests might have gone slightly differently, maybe a few points different here, maybe a hair better here and there. But again, I think the conclusion would have been the same. I just don't think it made sense for me to replace my 4-year-old MacBook Pro with the new one. By the way, I find it really funny when I post a video and then I read some of the comments, and just reading them, I know immediately they didn't watch the video at all. I saw 2 interesting types of comments pretty frequently on that video where I said you should buy the new MacBook Air over the MacBook Pro. The first comment was like this: "Don't listen to this guy, the new M1 MacBooks are amazing." So I guess when they watched the video to completion, they missed the part where I said multiple times that the new MacBooks are amazing. Another comment that I saw was basically how I was wrong about the Pro being better than the Air, and they just went through and listed all the reasons the Pro was better. Nearly every reason they mentioned, I actually mentioned in the video itself. So I guess when they watched the video to completion, they missed that 30% chunk of the video where I talked about that. Okay, I'm done being salty. I don't like getting videos with lots of dislikes. It's not fun for me, especially when people didn't watch the video. Okay, I'm done. Not salty. To be completely fair, I think there are some reasons why you should buy an M1 Mac, and I'm gonna go through them right now because these are things I really enjoyed about the MacBook Air. First off, the battery life on these things are great. They are really good. The Pro is even better battery life, but I thought the Air's battery life was fantastic. Another feature that Apple keeps touting is this, I think it's called Instant On feature, where basically you start opening the laptop and before you even have it fully extended out, the laptop is on and ready to use. That's really cool. I'll be honest, it's not that amazing, but it's a really neat feature because on the 4-year-old Pro, it also turns on pretty quick. But on this, it is better. If you don't own a Mac now, I would consider the MacBook Air like this. Like, you know how they have the iPhone SE where it's this cheap version of the iPhone, but it gets you like 90% of the features and performance? That's kind of how I see the MacBook Air. I kind of see it like the MacBook SE, where you're getting great performance at a much lower price. Okay, one more reason why you might want the Air still, even despite everything I've said. I know a lot of companies stopped calling their laptops and started calling them notebooks. And I heard the theory was because they don't want you to put them on your laps anymore. The thing is, I put them on my lap all the time. When I'm working downstairs while watching TV with my wife or driving on a road trip, I just like getting work done on my lap. And the thing about the 4-year-old MacBook Pro is it gets really hot and my legs start getting pretty sweaty. They don't get like burns or anything, but whereas with the MacBook Air, there's like no heat and it's amazing and no sweaty legs. It's awesome. Okay, conclusion time. I feel like I've concluded this video multiple times now, but I keep thinking of things. But I'm really concluding it now. Again, this was supposed to be a very different video. I hope you know I'm not trying to hate on the MacBook Air. I was hoping and expecting the MacBook Air to just dominate my 4-year-old MacBook Pro. And that's just not what happened. Now, I'm not the type of person that buys something that's mildly better than the thing that I currently have. I like things to just blow away what I have today. I want 2x, 4x, maybe even 8x performance. I want something that just crushes anything that I have. I want that real sense that this is brand new, cutting edge technology. And after all the testing, going back and forth, that's not exactly what it is. It's great what it is, but it's not blowing away the old platform. I think the issue with benchmarks is they show us a number that represents the true maximum potential of a machine. Like when you are maxing out your performance, when you're running, when you're basically slamming the gas down and trying to go as fast as you can, that's what a benchmark is. But that's not exactly how we use our computers these days. We're not slamming down the gas. A lot of times we want some headroom. We want a computer that when it's at idle or a little bit above idle, that it still is performing pretty well. And then maybe there are times when we want to slam the accelerator. To be honest though, I am actually really excited about Apple's future of making laptop and desktop chips. I'm really excited to see how they improve year over year. Because in my mind, some of the incumbents haven't really pushed the envelope so much because it hasn't really been in their best interest to. But now they got some good competition. So anyway, I've returned the MacBook Air, and I will revisit this whole thing when they release the new MacBook Pros in the next couple months. And maybe, hopefully, those will change my mind. Maybe they will blow away what I currently have. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. My channel is all about finding awesome tech and products that aren't too pricey. And if you're into that sort of thing, please subscribe and enable notifications. Thanks again. I am Titus, by the way, and I'll see you next time.